All right, so Michelle, if you want to press. Oh, before we press record, just a reminder, any questions or comments today have to be very general because we are recording and we're going to be posting this on our district website after. We cannot have any private or identifying information. And we want to keep questions general anyways to honor everybody's time. So yeah, if you have a specific question, just don't put any name or anything in the question. So, all right, without further ado, Michelle.
All right, thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're going to talk about launching into adulthood today. Before I introduce myself, we've got some other folks here who may want to introduce themselves as well. Does our next slide have introductions, Jen? Yeah, so this is the three of us who are in BSD. I work for the special ed department as one of our compliance coordinators. I'm also a member of the special needs PTSA as a parent. I've got two students with disabilities, one of whom graduated from the transition program last spring, the other of whom attends Bellevue Big Picture School. Jen, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Jen Straley. I'm Special Ed Program Coordinator. I oversee the transition program, which is the 18 to 21-year-olds community-based program for the district. And I also just do district-wide support with a lot of things. So, and that's me. And I have to update that. My kids are 3.5 and 6 now. I forgot to update that slide, but yeah, hello, and glad you guys can be here today.
Sally Sue.
Hi, I'm Sally Sue McDonald, and I am an instructional coach. I also do the ESY secondary coordinator. I work with the high school and the middle school, and that's me, all my information. I do have 3 kids, and my 3 adult children all had 504s throughout middle school, high school, and accessed services in college. So,
and Sally Sue, you're coming to us from Kansas. Kansas?
I am in Kansas, but committed.
Yeah. Tracy, did you want to take a moment?
If I unmute, yep, sure. Hi, I am Tracy Ritzow. I am one of the co-presidents of the Bellevue Special Needs PTA. I'm not Lisa. Lisa is the other co-president with me. I have 2 kids. And I have 2 kids in district. I have an 8th grader at Big Picture who's on a 504, and then I have a 6th grader at Highland who's in the Pacific program. And just FYI for you guys, I'll be on for a while, but I'll be dropping.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy.
Is Lisa with us? I wasn't sure who was all on the call.
I don't think Lisa's.
No, she wasn't able to make it tonight.
Okay. Gita, did you want to say hello?
Yes, but I'm going to keep my camera off just for the moment. So hello, my name is Gita. I am your family liaison. Let me get to a spot where I can turn my camera. I'm double dutying a little bit with parenting, so hold on. You might be hearing my kids in the background. So hi, everybody. Okay.
I still laugh when someone says duty.
Thanks, Gita. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. As Jen said, keep them general. And we'll be monitoring the chat and pause for questions as we're able. We will be gathering feedback at the end, and you can use Google Translate on your smartphone for translation services. But I hope that Gita has coordinated with you if that was a need. And I think we're recording, so we're good. Okay. just some save the dates. On the end of next month, we're going to do part 2 of our positive behavior series. Last time we had Dr. Jared Taylor. And this next time we're going to have our behavioral health coordinator, Adria, I can't remember her last name,
Hagen.
She's amazing. She's a really good presenter. And she will be doing a part 2, which is more around practical strategies that you can use at home to promote positive behavior. And then at the end of March, we're going to do positive communication among IEP teams. We're going to have a panel of parents to talk about what's been helpful for them. And we might have some staff on that panel as well. So we hope you join us for that. And okay, so what's going to happen today? We're going to talk a little bit about transition plans in the IEP for those of you who might be new to the transition IEP process. We're going to talk about the different components in the IEP that are different than what you've seen at the elementary level. And I'm going to talk about that section, which is really just IEP based. And then Jen's going to talk to you about some post-school options that exist for students with disabilities, so you can start thinking and planning ahead and thinking what might be possible for your student. And then Sally Sue is going to talk about strategies to help your student be college ready. So Sally Sue has a ton of experience at the high school helping students get ready for college, and has a lot to say about that. So we're going to try to keep our sections. I'm going to try to keep my section brief because I think those next 2 sections are pretty important because they're more on the ground in practical strategies. But I'll go ahead. We can forward the slide and I'll just jump right into what transition planning is. So when we hear the word transition, it can be kind of overwhelming because there's a lot of transitions in life, but in the special ed world, what this is about the transition from high school to post-high school. And we want to start planning for that sooner rather than later, so we can backwards map based on a student's goals, because as you might know with your students, it can take years to prepare them for adulthood. So transition planning can include a set of coordinated activities. I think this is actually language from the WAC. It's either IDA or the WAC language. It's a set of coordinated activities designed to be a results-oriented process that facilitates the successful movement from school to post-secondary living. And the law in Washington is that a transition plan has to be included in the student's IEP in the year that they're turning 16. So that means if they're 15 years old and they have an IEP meeting, there needs to be a transition plan in it. We like to go above and beyond what the law says. So we are requiring students in 9th grade and up to have transition plans, recognizing that there are some 14-year-old freshmen out there who still need transition plans. So it's guaranteed if you're high school on up. And we are also trying to work with our middle school teams to get at least minimally started on transition planning in middle school. So what does a transition IEP include? It includes post-secondary goals. And those post-secondary goals are goals that are formulated after doing a really comprehensive transition assessment. All of that is going to be related to 3 areas. And the first area is education. The second area is employment. And the third area is independent living skills. I think the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this slide has a nice little visual. You okay, Jen?
Just give me 1 second. I want to, sorry, everybody. Let me just stop sharing and share again. I want to do the one where I can see the slide ahead, because one moment. Is it? Okay, I'm not sure. Sorry, I was trying to make it so I can see the slide ahead, but I don't know how to do that, so never mind, Michelle. Go ahead.
Yeah, that would have been cool, but oh well.
Yeah, okay.
We can. So what transition planning is not, it's not the thing that happens after the regular IEP as an add-on. It's not just a little section. The transition planning for your students should be woven into and comprehensively part of the entire IEP. It is not just for students. I mentioned that my son was in the transition program, and the transition program is for students who've completed 4 years of high school and they're in the 18 to 21. It's not just for those students. That transition program for 18 to 21 can be a little confusing because it's got the same name. And it's not optional, not for students ages, well, this slide says 16 and up, but in Bellevue, it's not optional for freshmen on up. And it's also individualized. So it is not going to be the same for every student because every student has different strengths, different needs, different preferences, different interests, and they're going to have different goals. Transfer of rights. So on this slide is transfer of rights. That just is a reminder for parents that unless you have guardianship upon your child turning 18, once they do turn 18, their educational rights transfer to them, and they drive the IEP process as the chief player. That doesn't mean that we exclude parents once their kids turn 18. I know when my son turned 18, I don't have guardianship. What that meant is that he kind of said, yeah, I want my mom at the IEP team meeting. And then I went to the IEP team meeting, but he just took a much more prominent role in his planning. This is a nice, quick visual about transition plans moving forward. And without even looking at the content of what this says, you can see how every year more and more things happen. So in 8th grade, it says start HSBP. That stands for High School and Beyond Plan, which we will talk about more in depth. But the High School and Beyond Plan is something that every student, general ed and special ed students, do with their school counselor. And we want to make sure that school counseling, High School and Beyond Plan, and the IEP align. And so we get further and further on, and it's more than just reviewing the High School and Beyond Plan. We start doing transition assessments. We start considering agency linkages. We start considering community-based instruction. We start applications for outside services as needed if they're older. Okay, Jen, I think that's about it. And as I've been saying, everything in the IEP needs to be looking ahead for their future. All right, so we start in an IEP with an assessment, right? Because the assessment is going to give us the information that we need to make the goals. And then the goals are going to, based on the goals, we're going to decide what services. So an age-appropriate transition assessment should be a part of every transition IEP, and it includes 4 parts. We call it the SPIN, which stands for strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. And that assessment process doesn't just happen once and is a one and done, because as you know, preferences change, needs change, students grow, they mature. So this is an ongoing process. It's collecting data from multiple sources. I would expect in a transition assessment, I would expect at the very least a student interview and potentially a parent interview. And as appropriate, if the student is able to participate in them, and there's always an assessment a student can participate in, a more formal assessment to look at strengths, interests, there's career inventories. We have a robust library of assessments that kids can use. It has to be updated at least annually at every IEP. If you go into your IEP meeting and the transition assessment looks exactly like last year's assessment, I'm saying as a parent, my advice to you is to push back a little bit on that team and say, how can we help update this information? We're usually pretty good about updating that information. So I don't think that should happen, but you should be aware as a parent that that needs to be updated every year. And it should also say where this information came from. It should not just be teacher observation. This is what a transition assessment looks like in an IEP, just so that you are familiar when you receive your IEP draft. It's called age appropriate transition assessment. And this is an example transition assessment. Yeah, we can keep going. Because I do want to give enough time for Jen and Sally Sue. So I don't want to spend, I'm not going to dive very deep. The strengths are the students' talents and skills. The preferences might be things like, I enjoy working alone, or I enjoy working with people, or I like a really quiet environment, or I like a really busy environment. Let's go to the next one. Interests. This might include career interest areas, like I'm interested in a STEM field. This slide is somebody who's interested in culinary arts. And then the needs. The way that this is phrased is what are the barriers, but I would say that in the IEP, the needs would be addressing how to accommodate those barriers. A student might need visual checklists in this example. A student might need any number of accommodations. They might need to be seated while working. There we go. And there's, as I mentioned, the types of assessments earlier, those can be divided into two categories of informal assessments and formal assessments, interest inventories. That I want to just point out really quickly here, in the formal side, the very last one says Naviance. Naviance is our software that the entire Bellevue School District uses for all students to do their high school and beyond plan. And I'm learning as a parent, I can ask my student to log into his Naviance account, and I can see, as an 8th grader, my son did I think it was called like a personality strengths profiler. And next year he'll do something a little more job-based, and they'll give him some ideas of like agricultural field. They'll give him some, I think they're called the Holland career codes. Like it'll give him career areas that it would suggest based on how he answered that. But as a parent, it's really cool to look in there with your student if you're able to see. There's a ton of assessments in there, and it can be fun to play even as a family with that. We've been doing that for the last few months. Okay. All right, so you have all this assessment data. What do you do with it? Well, you sit down next and you start thinking about some post-secondary goals. So a post-secondary goal on an IEP is a little bit different than the goals you're used to seeing in an IEP, which are annual goals. So usually on an IEP, you have goals that they're going to achieve within 1 year. Like maybe their reading level is going to increase so much, or there's a little social skill. Maybe they're going to learn to respond to conversations with on-topic responses. But a post-secondary goal isn't something that is going to be achieved and then move forward. A post-secondary goal is something that we're looking at far in the future. So the examples here, we have college, employment, continuing adult services. Why don't you go to the next slide? We might have more specific examples. Yeah, here's some. So there you go. All right. Education training will describe what we think might happen in terms of a student's education post-high school. So this can look like, this example is participating in on-the-job training in the food services industry. For some students, this could look like we'll attend a 4-year university majoring in computer science. For some students, this could be we'll attend the ROAR program. But it's the key here is it's happening after high school, which also means after the transition program. So after they're 21, after they're out of public school. And if they're not going to attend a university or college setting, then what kind of training might they be receiving? And then employment, this example is we'll participate in supported employment services in the retail industry. Sometimes you might see supportive and competitive. Competitive employment is employment like, I got a job in Bellevue School District. I had to apply for the job. They had to hire me. There's no agency helping me out. I'm just on my own. That's competitive employment. Where supported employment, there will be an agency and supports in place that will help that individual do work. The third category of independent living is going to be a little more. I'm trying to think for my son, that was an interesting one for us because it changed from year to year. In this example, this student needed to learn how to use Metro to get to work and back. For some students, it might be needing to learn budgeting skills. For some students, it might mean needing to learn self-advocacy. For others, it might mean participating in their daily routines semi-independently. It can look very different for every student. Preparing for independent living.
These were just more examples.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, Jen, because now I don't have to think of them. They're right here. Here are more examples of independent living goals. I'm trying to remember what my sons were. I know that they changed as he changed.
I know several years ago, there was a real push to get a lot of teachers to write these because the common understanding was, oh, unless my student has high needs and is working on life skills, they don't have any independent living needs. And so now we're really pushing every single special ed teacher to strongly consider this and do transition assessments in these areas.
Yeah, I agree. I think every student, whether they have an IEP or not, should have an independent living goal, really. And this is where I put back, I take off my special educator hat and put on my parent hat and say, if there's something missing in your student's IEP that you think is necessary, please advocate for that. Yeah. Why don't we go to the next slide? Okay. So after you've done your assessment, you've figured out your goals, the next thing is to say, okay, now we start backwards mapping. So I've got this goal, 8 years from now, whatever, I hope to do this. What services do I need to be in place so I can build up to get there? And these are the services that are going to happen now while the student is in school, what we're going to do in this IEP to help them meet the goal when they're out of school. And those services are where you will see those in the IEP are listed below. And in this example, it was about taking in the student's special education setting, that student was going to be doing college and career exploration. For a lot of students, if they've identified a field that they're interested in, like if they're interested in the fine arts, well, the student's going to start taking some performing arts classes to help prepare them for that. Services can also look like specially designed instruction. That's not listed here, but that's a service as well. Related services can help students as well. Let's move ahead. After you identify the actual services the student's going to get, then there's also a course of study section in the IEP. And the course of study section is just a map of the classes they're going to take to get to where they want to go. So it's a description of the coursework. And in Bellevue School District, I'm not sure if we have a picture of it on this slide, but it looks like a little grid with check boxes that just say which classes they're going to take each year. And that's going to help them, number one, get a diploma, and number two, achieve their post-secondary goals. So example, their course of study, if a student wants to work in the tech field, they should be taking tech-related courses, right? They should be taking, Bellevue, we've got a lot of tech-related courses. So if there's a real mismatch, if your student is interested in technology, but all of their courses are not technology, right? And this is where we as parents, it's good to step in and make sure with our partners on the IEP team that this is all aligning and matching. Let's move up. Oh yeah, so this is the part about, I talked about this a little bit earlier, that word HSBP, High School and Beyond Plan. That's done, every student in Bellevue School District does a High School and Beyond Plan. It's required by the time a student graduates. They're very similar to transition plans. It's kind of interesting, actually, because IEPs have required transition plans for years by law. And at some point, a bunch of legislators realized that maybe all students need transition plans. So the High School and Beyond Plan is almost if you look at what's included in that and what's included in the IEP transition plan, they're very, very similar. And just like transition plans, the information in them changes as the student grows and changes. And we want to make sure that they're lined up. The school counselor typically works with your student on the high school and beyond plan. The IEP case manager typically works with your student on the transition plan. So this is where it's very important to bridge those two. And what you're going to see at high school is the school counselor getting more and more involved in your student's IEP and collaborating more with your special education case manager so that they can make sure that these things align.
And I think all the high schools, I'm not sure about the middle schools, have career and college advisors. And I know they play a role too with helping. I don't know everything that they do, but I know they go into classes and talk about different college and career options and help students in Allianz too. I'm just not sure as much what their role is though, compared to a counselor.
Yeah. Okay. So we've done all that. And then the process is to write the annual IEP goals. So let's just say, let's see, as I mentioned earlier, the IEP goals are those goals that are going to be completed, worked on now and completed within a year. And we really want to make sure that the IEP goals support and align with and help the student prepare for the post-secondary goal. Now, let's see if there's an example on the next slide. It's a big surprise. I have no idea what this next slide is going to be. Great. I don't have to make up my own example. This is awesome. Okay. So here's Max's example. After graduation, Max will independently ride the bus to and from work. And that's takes a lot of learning how to know to get on the right bus and read the schedule and all of that. So this year in this IEP, we're going to work on given a bus schedule adapted with pictures. Max will select the correct time and stop for 5 scenarios of activities presented, improving their planning and independent living skills. So the IEP team will be working with Max on taking the bus. For students, if this isn't in this example, but for students whose independent living education training is more independent, like I'm going to go to community college or four-year university, or I'm going to go major in this field. Measurable goals could be more academic in nature to help prepare them. It could be more around organization, setting and adhering to deadlines, breaking tasks into manageable parts, more executive functioning things needed for adulthood. That's a pretty common one for a lot of students.
Self-advocacy is another really common one I see. If and Sally Sue's going to talk more about this later, but if a student really has their heart set on college, but they're not attending their meeting, or they're not talking in their meeting, or they're not speaking up for their accommodations, there's a big discrepancy there. And so that's something where the teacher could write a self-advocacy goal. It could be under social, it could be under adaptive. Sometimes I've seen it under like social emotional, but that would relate to their post-secondary goal of attending college. That's a big one.
And then finally, in this transition services flow chart we're looking at is coordinating services with adult agencies. This happens with some, but not all of our students. It's coordinating with adult agencies as appropriate. My son has services from DVR, the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, and Bellevue School District connected us up with a case manager from DVR who he still meets with on a regular basis to help him with employment planning. Some students have more services than that, and some students don't need services at all. But if a student needs support and services, the team is going to identify those, and then the team is going to reach out to those agencies and help you with that eligibility as needed to make sure that your student's getting those services. Here's some examples. Yeah, we've got Well, this is an agency linkage. Okay.
I know in transition program, the main one we work with is the at-work agency.
Yeah.
And DVR, which is this blue rectangle over here. So we have permission to invite them to the IEP meetings. They're pretty much part of our IEP teams once most of our students are in transition, but we do need to fill out and get consent forms and make sure families or the student, if the student's their own guardian, gives consent to have them at the meeting. But, yeah. I think we're almost to the colleges part. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is just a reminder that the IEP is not a hoop to jump through. It's not a piece of paper that we just want to check off and move on for. It's really meant to be, and the older a student gets, I think the more meaningful the discussion really needs to be on. This is not just the student's experiences in school, it's preparing the student for the rest of their life. And making sure we have all the information at the table to help our student figure out what they want to do with their life. That's a big question, and it's a scary question, and it's scary for us as parents. Imagine how scary it is for them. I found that the team at Bellevue, in my experience, has been really helpful in helping me walk through that process. So I hope that you have the same experience as well. We just want to have a meaningful discussion about which courses the students are going to take, what supports are in place, because we want to set everybody up for success.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening.
I hit that by accident too soon. Thank you, Michelle.
Sure.
Okay, and so the next several slides, we're just going to go over some, not all, post-school options that a lot of parents ask about. Please know this is not an exhaustive list. There are some resources at the end. There's one really awesome website called thinkcollege.net where you can go to and find, search for colleges that support learning differences and neurodivergent students on there, and then I'll give you a list of Washington State and national colleges. So we're going to talk very briefly about ROAR at WSU, OLS at the Bellevue College, Neurodiversity Navigators Program at Bellevue College, and then Highline Achieve. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about DVR too, which is not listed on here, but we will talk about them. For every college program, there's about 3 slides. So I'm first going to talk about kind of their nuts and bolts, and then program requirements and admissions. So ROAR, in case you are not familiar with it, is on the eastern side of Washington State, and it's relatively new. It's within probably the past like 5 years or so. And it is, so students dorm there if you live in Bellevue. And so it's a 2-year inclusive post-secondary education program for students with ID and developmental disabilities. It's individualized programs of study in areas such as education, vocation, social skills, a lot of independent living through, I must have not finished writing that sentence, but a lot of independent living skills such as budgeting and self-advocacies and cooking. It is an employment-focused program, so it's for students who are eventually on a pretty functional track, but they do want that college experience. And so students can sit in a lot of the traditional WSU classes if they'd like that experience, but most of them are auditing the courses, not necessarily taking them for credit, and with their same aged peers. So this is a little different than OLS, which we'll go over in a different slide. And there is dorms, like I said, because it is on eastern side of the state. And for you guys can get this after, we are going to post it, but for every slide there is you can click and go to their website. And I was able to find informational sessions that are coming up for each college. So the next one for ROAR is February 21st, it is virtual, and they are wonderful. I've met with, I've had Roar come and speak to the teachers in the transition program. They are really, really wonderful. They are great at answering questions. We had a student that just graduated from Roar about a year ago, and she loved it, and she came and talked to our students, but she really liked it because she had some academic and cognitive challenges, but really wanted that college experiences. And so it was really exciting for her to be in her own dorm room and supported like that. And so for Roar, there's 5 essential elements to their program. They do a lot of person-centered planning meetings. So if you don't know what a person-centered plan meeting is, it's basically a holistic team approach to looking at an individual with a disability, and you have a facilitator who's a neutral party, and they come up with a plan for the students' future, for their dreams, what kind of employment do they want, what supports do they need to get there, who are important people in their life that are going to help them get there. So all people, all members who go through Roar are part of that person-centered plan process. You can audit courses. There are specific Roar courses that aren't listed in this presentation tonight, but you can certainly go on their website. But those are a lot of the functional, academic, and life skill courses that they offer for their students. They also have some students pairing with employment vendors working on getting paid employment. And so essentially kind of like a transition program at a college. That's how I like to think of it. And then a lot of facilitated inclusive campus and community experiences. They have students there, gen ed students, who are peer role models and advisors, and they have a lot of clubs and extracurricular activities to keep those students engaged and included. So their program eligibility is pretty loose compared to some of the other ones. 4th grade, you do have to have a 4th grade reading, writing, math level. And most of these colleges are going to say the same thing as far as, you have to be able to be responsible and socially adaptive, not have behaviors, daily behaviors that disrupt your functioning. You have to be very independent. So students that require a lot of para support in their very senior year probably aren't going to be a good fit for Roar. You want to have that adult fated and show that you can be successful and independent without a para support. Have emotional and independent ability to participate in all of the aspects of Roar. Show that you can be responsible. Like I said, no aggressive behavior. Really show that independent work habits and self-manage your medication. These are all really important skills for any young adult going to college. They do want to make sure you can function independently and sit in seminars that can be up to 2 hours potentially. So that is a long time. So that is something to consider if you're thinking about college for your young adult. Can your young adult handle and adapt to change? So if their schedule changes, can they kind of go with the flow and handle that? Because that is life. And are they demonstrating potential to successfully achieve personal and program goals? So a lot of the conversations are going to be between the student and the faculty, and parents take a big back seat when your young adult is even in an adaptive college program. But Sally Sue will talk more about that later. So that's it for Roar. These are just meant to be kind of small, in a nutshell, presentations for each college program. And if any parents have any information that you have learned about at any of the college fairs that you want to share, feel free to drop that information in the chat. And again, I highly encourage you to go to their informational sessions where you can take a deeper dive and learn more. So Bellevue College, the OLS program it stands for Occupational Life Skills Program. And they are on their main campus now. They used to be segregated at the North Campus, but they recently moved to the South Campus. It's an associate's degree program for students with learning disabilities, and they do offer individual and group support. It is an associate's degree, but the classes are offered at a part-time rate, so it does take place over 4 years, but it is a results in an associate degree at the end. And there's a lot of community activities integrated into the courses. And OLS is great. We have a lot of former students from our district that are currently attending OLS that we keep in touch with. So we have a lot of information about OLS compared to some of the other programs. Again, they have a great website, and their next info session is February 21st, and that is virtual, but they are offering some in-person sessions too, but the next one's virtual. So this is just a snapshot. So it kind of shows the OLS model broken down by year. And sorry about that, my son just popped in. Okay, he's gone. So the first year they really, you travel as a cohort. So it's at Bellevue College, but it is a self-contained separate program within the college. But you're in your cohort, and the first year students are working a lot about communication in the workplace, career portfolios. They're not taking all of their regular classes at Bellevue College, but classes specifically designed for students in OLS. Second year, they're doing a lot of career exploration activities. Third year, they're doing, well, you guys can read the slides yourself. I don't want to read word for word, but each year they're working on different work-based and functional skills. And then their fourth year is when students are really out and about and doing their internships. Often they're paid internships. When I was a teacher several years ago, I actually had a OLS intern work in my classroom for 6 months because they wanted to learn how to be a paraeducator. So it was a really positive experience, but that's a really, really deep dive into internships. Their program eligibility is right here. So you need your high school completion or a diploma. They are very strict that you have to have a 70+ IQ. There's really no wiggle room there for the most part, but if you have a young adult whose IQ is, maybe 69, it is worth them looking through the eval to see if there's other scores they can consider. But for the most part, they are pretty strict with that score. Again, 4th grade reading, writing, math level. And a lot of these other things are going to be the same as ROAR, but students have to be able to independently regulate their emotions, handle classroom assignments, navigate campus independently, be able to pay attention in classes and work on that self-advocacy and self-regulation piece. As we said, there's no paraeducators. Parents take a back seat with their with your involvement in your young adults' college experience. Neurodiversity Navigators at Bellevue College is another great program. And if you haven't ever sat through an informational session with Sarah Gardner, who runs it, I highly encourage you to. They have one coming up virtually again, February 12th. So this is basically you're attending regular Bellevue College. So you're picking whatever major you want to pick, computer science, childhood education, biology, but you do get some support that you don't get otherwise through the Disability Resource Center. So they do focus on advocacy, access services to neurodivergent students at BC, pursuing their choice of degrees and or certificates. They focus on executive functioning, social interaction, a lot of self-advocacy and self-regulation. And we'll see that broken down on the next slide. And again, students are taking academic classes designed to increase self-knowledge and career preparation. So this is broken down. It shows the top. Now, some students are, if they do take 4 years at BC, the Navigators program really supports them strongly for the 3 years. But year one, they're taking all of their regular classes at BC, but they also have these extra classes designed for students that are neurodivergent, such as college and career navigation, executive functioning in the workplace, and self and community advocacy. Year two, they're focusing on a class called Who Am I, Where Am I Going? Occupational Wellness and Connecting with Community. Year three, interpersonal communication, internship prep, and another internship as mentor, which is optional. And again, these are on top of their normal classes that they're taking at Bellevue College for their degree. And underneath for academics, they do have some support. There's an orientation during the summer that they students do who are navigators, and they also have access to trained peer mentors and faculty advisors who support them with communication and getting their accommodations met. And here's the program eligibility. You do have to be a matriculated Bellevue College student, and to get in, you do have to be assessed at an English level 072 or above via the testing center. But you don't need your high school transcript necessarily, but you do have to take that assessment. You do have to identify as autistic or otherwise neurodivergent and meet with a program administrator to ensure that they understand the program. You have to take a minimum of 7 credits at BC during the quarter. You have to participate in your weekly meetings with your peer tutor and your classes. And then there's a student agreement form that the young adult signs at the start. I noticed this is
Can I add in a quick, just really quickly? I know of a student, she actually is now at UW, but she did neurodiversity navigators via Running Start. So if you do have a student who's interested in Running Start and is taking a heavy credit load, they might be able to do this as well. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. That's a really good option. I totally forgot about Running Start. I noticed that the student agreement is student agreement, not student and parent agreement. Again, going back to your young adult, they're their own guardian. They are in college, so they are now making decisions and being held accountable for their progress in college now. And this is the last one that we're really going to talk about before Sally Sue goes on. There's Highline Achieve program, and I've known 2 students who have gone through this program. It is in Highline, so in Des Moines at Highline Community College. This is going to be kind of more like Roar. So it's a community college certificate program, includes credit and non-credit classes. There's intensive advising, so students get an advisor that they meet with every single week. They are often involved in a lot of campus life, clubs, extracurricular activities. They are participating in community-based internships. So the student that I knew several years ago took classes at Achieve, but then also worked at a bookstore right off campus because that was one of her post-secondary employment goals, was to work in a bookstore someday. So she had an internship off campus to gain that experience. There's 2 tracks for Achieve. You can do the 1-year fast track. That's just gives you your employment certificate. And then there's a longer 2-year track where you get your transition certificate. So you're experiencing that college experience, but again, it's more like you're doing almost like a transition program on a college campus. I know another student that's participating that they're in a lot of the clubs. He's auditing a math class. He's not necessarily taking it for credits, but he's really enjoys math, and he's auditing that and engaging with students with and without disabilities. Their next info session, it is in person, unfortunately. They do have some virtual, but the next one is in person. But I've been to Achieve many times. Julie Pollard, who runs Achieve, is awesome. And so other than the commute, it is a really great program.
Hey, Jen, there's a question in the chat. Do you want to take it right now?
Sure.
Okay, so it says for Bellevue Navigators, if they must take a minimum of 7 credits, is that full-time or what credit load is typical? Some autistic students experience burnout or overwhelm, so I am trying to gauge what the number 7 means in this context. Thank you.
That's a really great question. So I understand that you have to do full-time, however, don't quote me on that. Where is it? Oh, I thought it said somewhere in there. I believe I heard from someone that it is full-time, but if maybe, I don't know if Sally, Sue, or Michelle, if you could look that up while we're presenting and get back to them.
I just Googled it, and Bellevue College has on their website that full-time is 15 credits.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe
7 seems like it might be about half load.
Okay. I know that's why OLS has it spread out over 4 years, because of that reason. They do find that they used to be try and squeeze it into 2 years a long time ago, and students were experiencing so much burnout for that reason. So for Achieve, they're looser with their oh, sorry, my computer's sorry, the slides are mixed up. I'll go back to the eligibility in a second. Here's the Achieve model. They have 3 areas. They have the campus involvement, where students are in clubs, do leadership activities, lots of social and recreational events. In the classroom, they're doing courses. They're, as I said, they are linked to an advisor that they meet with weekly, if not more. And then also the advisor is linking them to different resources, like Michelle mentioned, DVR, Department of Vocational Rehab. There are some employment vendors if a student does go to Achieve, and they do have DDA services, Developmental Disabilities Administration. Those students who are eligible for supported employment get hooked up with an employment vendor. And students who do not have DDA can go to DVR for just help finding a job. They just don't get need a job coach. There's peer navigators to help students find their way around campus if needed. And then there's lots of internships and job training. So it's a great vocational experience, but also on a college campus for students who kind of want to marry those 2 worlds, employment and college. And here's the eligibility for Achieve. There is no IQ score for this one, but you still have to have a lot of those other independent habits. You have to be want a job. You have to be at least 18 years, be able to attend personal care needs or provide a personal care attendant. I do know a student who went several years ago who did have a personal care assistant as she was in a wheelchair and needed some support using the restroom, but they were very supportive of that. Obviously, that's her rights. You have to be an active participant through the length of the program. So again, your young adult has to be the one asking the questions, doing the work, and really participating in those meetings. And you have to be able to safely navigate around campus on your own. They do have peer advisors who help students in the beginning, but then students have to be able to navigate on their own and be able to get to classes on your own. Some students take the access bus, some students take Metro or drive. And the last slide before Sally Sue takes over, those were just some adapted college options. And there's also, DVR in case your young adult is employment bound. So Michelle mentioned it earlier, but DVR stands for Department of Vocational Rehab. And here's where you get some short-term individualized voc counseling. So DVR is not going to help job coach you throughout your job, but they will help show someone, okay, here's what the statistics look like in that field, and here's some job shadowing opportunities, and I'm going to help you set up your interview, maybe help you with your resume. But DVR is not long-term, but it's a great agency that helps anybody 16 and up with a disability. If you are interested in learning more about DVR, please reach out to your young adults case manager. And all the high schools have a DVR liaison that is assigned to their school. Okay, I know that was fast, but I really am excited for Sally Sue to get going, because you have great slides to talk about what it means to be college ready.
All right. I am, like we said, I'm in a hotel in Kansas. So if I get kind of crackly, Jen, you might end up finishing the slides for me. But hopefully I'm clear that you can hear me. I'll keep my video off. What I do want to share with you is the presentation that on February 7th is the presentation that is presented at the college fair I think it's at Highland Middle School for students and graduates, seniors that are graduating and they're on their way to college. Some they get all sorts of different information, but one of those breakout sessions is for students with learning differences. And so this is the information I would share for parents who know their child is in the college, traditional college bound setting. and path. But what I also believe, a lot of this information, and this is where Jen and Michelle and I were talking, it's really as you're heading as your son or daughter are heading to college, whether they're a 9th grader, 10th grader, wherever they're heading after they graduate, there are a lot of skills here that are really important skills to strive for independence. So it's really good information. This particular piece right here is, they talk about motivation, preparation, and self-advocacy. If you have any one of us that have teenagers, we look at that list and we think, holy cow, when will they ever get there? But it really is a guide for saying that what research has shown us, students who are heading into college have greater success and when they have lesser success. So the goal is to move them to as many of those as we can on the left and away from the ones on the right by the time they launch, which is obviously the name of this presentation. So I'm going to, will stay here, but I kind of go through that. So go ahead, Jen. All right. So what families need to know is it's not just magic that gets them to that college place. That is the high school and beyond plan that starts when students are in the 9th grade. So within the 9th grade, all students are enrolled in college, or encouraged to enroll in college prep courses. They develop their 4-year course plan with their counselor, with their case manager's assistants. They practice explaining their strengths and challenges. That's really important because all programs have like an interview component, and students, just like when they're in their IEP, it's just as important to be able to say what your strengths are as it is to say what your challenges are. That also goes in a job. It also goes whether you're going to a 2-year or a technical college. That's what, and your employers want to know that. But getting into those programs, these are the kinds of things that start, 9th grade is when we start talking about that. Start identifying and documenting accommodations and supports needed. So students really, they need to become aware of what they need to be successful. They apply at that time in the 9th grade. We start applying for accommodations for that ACT and the SAT. We work with the counselor to get those accommodations on those tests. Now, again, the ACT and the ACT, as you well know, are often not even required for a lot of the college acceptance, and then some are. But it's good practice, but you do want to make sure that you meet with the college counselor and make sure that you have the accommodations when you're testing. And then students in that 9th grade, they begin to study those class concepts when they're not assigned homework. So students that, as they start to think about, what is it I really want to do? What do I really want to study? They're starting to do a lot of those things. They're entering clubs, robotics, if they're thinking of engineering, or if they like to mechanical things. They are thinking maybe they want to do auto mechanics in one of the wanted classes. They're just starting to research and study. That's just typical of the 9th grade year. Go ahead, Jen. The 10th and 11th grade year, because you've been in high school, you start attending those students start attending college fairs. They start thinking about where they want to go. If they want to live at home, they want to meet college reps. They practice those interview skills. They practice what kind of questions they want to ask. They learn about what college is. And a lot of kids, what they think in the 10th grade they want to do and what happens in the 12th grade or after is very different. So it's just that opportunity to go get the information and go see the college reps as they start to come to school. They're expanding their study skills. They're mastering some effective study strategies. And again, that ACT and ACT, they explore those if they're going to take those. By the 11th grade, the high school and beyond, the plan is that they start to identify what programs fit, what their goals are and what their needs are. They use their college websites. They look at catalogs. Like Jen said, there's in the adaptive programs, there is a website that maybe Jen, you could put that in the chat because I think that's really helpful to start looking at. And even with any student, they should start planning those campus visits. No matter, because kids need to know what it really looks like to go to college. It's not what they see on TV. They need to see, is it a part-time job I need to get? How many credits am I going to take? Where is this place? And then they got to start thinking about getting those letters of recommendation. So by the 11th grade year, they got to start thinking about in their programs, they want to think about the teachers that they've connected with, or the counselor, or the librarian, or various staff members who would write letters of recommendation for them. So, and then 12th grade, the senior year. And then 12th grade, they check in with their guidance counselor and start working on there's a college application that they can do. There's the Common App. They continue those self-advocacy skills and working on study strategies, kind of noting what it is that they're very good at, where they need help. This is a part where once they get accepted to a program, they contact what's known as the Disability Services Center at the college that they're interested in. They don't usually do that until they've been accepted. I'll get into that. They review and they complete that college application. They ask their counselor to review it or their case manager to review it. They make sure that they're well ahead. They set their calendar reminders of when things are due. And then 2 to 3 weeks before, they make sure they're all done. They get lots of reminders, but really this 12th grade year, it's pretty important for students to it's a buzz. They're in their senior year, everybody's buzzing about something, and sometimes they get a little too nervous. I think junior year is as I recall, is the year when kids are a little bit more nervous, but senior year, they just really start making those actual contacts. So the next one just talks about the characteristics of students who are college bound. And at any student, no matter what the program is, they need to know what their self-advocacy is, their ability to speak for themselves, to talk about their accommodations. They're aware of their strengths and their needs. So they've been working on that maybe all their life, but certainly we start wanting them to really plan that out by the time they're in that 9th grade. That's why the transition program, the transition plans are critical in the 9th through transition program years. A student who perseveres has greater success, meaning that they kind of get through the harder times, because if you're in college, yeah, Jen?
Sorry, no, that was my daughter. Sorry.
Okay. If they're in college and they are starting to feel sick, and there's certain things that they feel like they just can't accomplish, they got to find those little strategies. Those coping strategies going to help them get through, because that's pretty tricky. They demonstrate those effective independent study habits as well. So they know what they need to do. They have their checklists. They're doing those things with you at home, probably. And we need to just highlight that and make them very aware of what they're doing. Okay, Jen. So here is a self-advocate. As a self-advocate, a student is able to describe their current limitations, and then which is caused by their disability. This is critical. So when they go to that interview, the person interviewing them loves to hear their strengths, but they also love to hear where their challenge is. And they want to know when it comes up and when it creates when they have to overcome and how they overcome it. So in the classroom, this affects me by, if they have challenges with attention or executive function. When I'm studying, it affects my ability to, stay on topic, not perseverate over certain things. Or in outside activities or work, it affects my ability to. So being a self-advocate is is a great skill that students need to work on, especially if they're as they're getting ready to go to a 2-year, a 4-year, a technical, an adaptive college. All of that is critical. Next, Jen. So here's what we know about the colleges. Adaptive colleges, as well as more traditional programs, they don't have the same obligations as the public school system does, because once students graduate from Bellevue School District, colleges do not have to provide or implement IEPs. They don't provide specialized instruction or tutoring, and they don't provide the same academic supports that were provided in high school. So what colleges do go to, they go to what's known as a 504. And the 504 is Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, also known as American with Disabilities Act. So keep going, Jen.
Oh, you kind of just went over this.
Sorry. Do you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I just said this is kind of what you went over. Do you want me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, well, again, I mean, the obligations of the college is to ensure equal access for people with disabilities and protect people from discrimination. When students apply for colleges, they might send their evaluation to the college, but the college isn't allowed to use that to discriminate against their acceptance. After, you can go to the next one. Once a student is accepted, though, they need to, the student, because they're 18, the student needs to register with the disability department, the disability office. And they register as a student with a disability, and that's after they are accepted. And again, that's the student's responsibility because they're 18. And for one of my own children, I went with them. I was allowed to go with them. I didn't know if they were going to let me in, but it was a large university, and they're like, yeah, you and your mom can come in. And they interviewed them, asked them, where their success was, where their challenges were, what kind of accommodations had they used. And then they gave a list. You can go to the next one, Jen. They gave them my child, after we provided the documentation that proved that he had indeed had a learning disability and was served on a 504 in high school, so 504 or an IEP in high school, then he was able to sign up for the Disability Center. So what you need to do, or what your child needs to do, you can get this ready for them. You can email the teachers or the psych at Bellevue, but you get the, upon graduation, you get the most recent evaluation of your child, and it needs to be within 3 years. I mean, that's best to have it within 3 years. Some colleges don't really care if it's a little bit older, but for the most part, they don't want to necessarily see the IEP. They need to see the evaluation, and then that is turned into the disability office, so that the student now has access to the services of the disability office under what's called the 504. And what does that mean? That means, go ahead, Jen, to the next one. That means that your child no longer has a case manager. They will have a contact in the disabilities office, but not a case manager like you're used to now, where the case manager kind of checks in on them on a regular basis. What the contact person at the disability office provides is they provide what they meeting with the student and reviewing the evaluation, they will determine reasonable accommodations. Reasonable meaning test notes, reasonable meaning extended time, reasonable meaning you can use a computer in class. I mean, that's pretty much for everybody. And what they do is they'll write an accommodation letter to every professor. Every semester, they'll write it to every professor and say, this student qualifies for these accommodations. They typically send it to the student, and the student forwards that to the professor. Now, if the student never forwards it to the professor, often that means, you know what, I think I'm okay in this class and I'm not going to need those accommodations, because often that's the case. They'll be in a class and they'll be like, you know what, I don't need extended time, because everybody gets extended time in this particular program, or everybody it's a really small group, and so I don't need a smaller instruction, or I already have my computer access. I don't need it. Most of the time, the best idea is to, or the best plan is to make sure that those accommodation letters go so that they don't have to, 2 weeks before an exam, go looking for that document and then give it to their professor. So you should just turn it and give it to them as soon as they get it from the disability office. Go ahead, Jen. Okay. Different colleges, however, offer different levels of support. So I have one child of mine went to University of Portland, which was more of a liberal arts college. The other went to Boise State. The other went to Marquette. So one of those children, it seemed like it was a smaller college, so everybody seemed to have similar supports. And the bigger college, it was much more specific to if you were registered with having a disability. Colleges will provide accommodations, but not modifications in their classes. So that is, they won't change the required expectation. Now, the adaptive college programs could be very different, but if it's
they aren't.
They aren't.
Yeah, I've had them on panels before, and they the same. They don't modify the work, but they do provide accommodations.
Okay. So again, if they're and the adaptive programs might help students get. It might be part of their program to help students get registered with the disabilities, but they still need to be registered with the disability office. Okay, next one, Jen. The kinds of accommodations. Again, it's the presentation, it's the form of response, it can be the setting, and it can be the timing and scheduling. Those are the basic accommodations that a student is going to see at the college level, 4-year, 2-year, and technical college. So Washington Voc Tech, some of the other environments. So yeah, I mean, those are pretty self-explanatory. So the typical accommodation. So sometimes there are, the slides for PowerPoints, like for lectures, and sometimes the professor at the beginning of class will say, I need one person to sign up to be the note taker for this class, submit your notes. And then what they'll do is they'll take a look at both notes, and then the professor will decide which notes are more thorough. So if there are class notes and the note taker is a student, like another student in the class, the person with the disability that needs the note taker sometimes can look and say, actually, this is my style of notes that makes more sense to me. Or the professor might choose which note taker, or the professor might take the notes themselves. So it's any number of those things that could happen, but notes are typically a common accommodation. Audio recordings for the lectures, the use of laptops in class, extra exam, taking exams in a distraction reduced room. That's often in the library, and it's like the music, those little music study carols. You go there, that somebody hands you your assessment and they take the test in there. And then again, preferential registration is often, sometimes students will need first floor classes or whatever, different preferential things, like I need time between my classes, whatever that is, and then extended time on tests. Go ahead, Jen. All right. Like I said, some colleges provide more supports. I would say that liberal arts colleges with smaller communities provide more support. Sometimes colleges, there's professional tutors that you can pay for at the college. Sometimes they'll have like a math lab, and students can go to the math lab, but the math lab, the student has to know to go to the math lab. And they're often graduate students, or they're other students, they're not professional teachers. I have found myself that I had more success, getting a tutor for one of my kids in a math class. And he's a great mathematician, but the language of the math class was a lot for him. So I said, you know what, how about just some re-explaining all these concepts at a slower pace. So I did that on our own, our family did. Then there's the workshops, and I can't remember what the other one is. Okay. Professors and TAs have office hours. So one of the things that we work with the seniors, we're like, you know what? They have office hours. You don't just get to chat them at any time. You sign up, you use it, you make a plan. And if you have a disability, you go there in person and you let them know that this is what I'm working on. These are my strengths. These are my challenges. Kind of have your, your soapbox, practice your soapbox. I don't know, letting them know what your needs are, because professors are there to help, but they can't help if they don't know there's a need.
And Sally Sue, can I just say something?
Go for it. Yep.
I talk to a lot of students about understanding what their needs are first. A lot of students don't even know how to self-advocate because they're not self-aware of not just of their disability, but how their disability impacts them. So I actually have spoken to quite a few parents who have said, oh, they have autism, but we don't really talk about it, or I'm not sure if they really know they have it or what it looks like, with their struggles. And so it's really, really important to be having those conversations with them, both at home and school, for them to really understand their needs. So they can say, okay, I am struggling with this or that. This is why I need my professor's help, or this is why I need this accommodation. It's just really about that self-awareness,
right.
laying the foundation first.
Absolutely. All right. And then there's just some savvy questions to ask the disability office. I think that these are ones that you could very much, students should be practicing. Do you provide tutoring? If so, is there a limit to the number of hours? What supports do the writing and math labs provide? I talked to you about those. Can anyone use the math and writing labs? Is my advisor for the disabilities office the same advisor I'll have for tracking progress towards graduation? It's typically your counselor, but I found the people in disabilities office, every single one I went to, every different office on different campuses, I found them a very dedicated, knowledgeable, waiting to help, because they know that students, they don't know what they don't know. College is new to them. They know they're going to face some frustrations, but the more they can front load and the more they can get ready for making relationships, they want to help. So get them there in August, and remind your kiddo to continue to go. And then are the additional costs for services I need, and how are the professors notified of my accommodations? Even though I just told you all that, this is a great list for them to actually ask their the disabilities office. I'm sure the disability office where they're at will have some kind of a cheat sheet, but at the same time, these are questions that they can just check off that they got the answers to. Jen?
Yeah, this is the next slide. More questions.
Oh, more questions. Sorry. Oh, when do I come to the disabilities office? How do I arrange appointments with you? Yeah. So the disabilities office is not there just for August. The disabilities office, it used to be that it's silly, this how old my kids are. You'd go get your recorded CD, and then you get a new recorded CD. So they had to go in and check in. It was in their textbook. And so I don't know what's getting kids back into the disability office, but that seemed to be what worked for my child. And then they just do a little quick check-in with them. It's right in the middle, typically in the middle. I know the Bellevue College one is at the base of the stairs in kind of one of the main buildings. And I see kids going in and out of there. And often they're going in with friends. So you'd be surprised how many kids are actually signed up with the disabilities office. Is there any assistive tech or human professional help? So that's a really important one, is make sure that you check on the assistive tech. Never know what's available that your child didn't access in high school because they had other supports like humans. In college, there could very well be other resources that allow them to be more independent as far as assistive techs. And when should I when and how should I contact you to get those services? So make sure you have their information. And if they turn over, even as a parent, you can call. They can't give you your child's information unless I believe you have to have some kind of written permission from your child or something else. Check in with them to see how you can ask. The most of what I'm just about to tell you was that colleges typically just are going to talk to your child. And I believe that's that. Are there just some questions? It's exciting. It's overwhelming. If you're young in this, if your kids are young in the process, don't be overwhelmed because they'll get there. If they're older in the process, you're not too late because these are still things that they can be working on, even if they take, a gap year. They can still work on these advocacy things. They find their, get themselves ready, take some classes, take more classes, audit classes. Any other questions?
Oh, here are the resources.
Last one, just a couple of different things that could be helpful. I think that's it, Jen.
That's us.
And got great timing. We have 5 minutes left.
I don't think we've ever had 5 minutes left. You are welcome. I think one of the big things that I want to stress, and this was said a couple different ways tonight, but if your student is college bound, we should see those college bound behaviors emerging in high school. We shouldn't be at an IEP meeting for a senior talking about college while the senior is either not even there or not talking at all during the meeting. And some students are more introverted or shy. That's fine, but are they owning a lot of the conversations, or are they helping run the IEP meeting like through a student-led IEP meeting, or are they asking questions, or are they advocating? A red flag goes off to me when it's the school team and or the parents doing all the talking, and the students barely involved, yet we're going to send them off to college a year from then. Or the student has full-time para minutes, tons of modified classes, and then we're talking about college in just a year. So we just want to make sure we're matching that student's post-secondary goals. Either college isn't a fit in that case, or it absolutely is, and we need to start fading some of those supports earlier. So it's just about making sure that we're setting the student up for success. And you know what, for anyone who wants to see this after, we can
I'll put the link in the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah, hold on. And I also put a feedback survey link. So if you're still on, if you could do that feedback survey, it's super helpful for us to know what was useful, what you want to hear more of, or if you have other ideas for sessions in the future.
Thank you. For the question in the chat about summer opportunities, the only one I know of off the top of my head, there is something called the Washington State Do It program, and if anyone knows more about it than me, feel free to speak up. But from what I know, it's like a 2-week stay away experience where students go, and I think it's at University of Washington, and you sign up and you kind of get a little taste of it. Doesn't mean you want to go to UW necessarily, but it's just to give you that college experience. You stay in a dorm, you're independent, you do some sort of like summer college orientation experiences, and it's kind of like a little taste of college. And so I believe that's open for students starting their junior year, but I did just post the link in the chat. And then if we, I don't know if anyone knows any others, but that's the big one.
There's a program at Bellevue College that may or may not be a fit for for some students. I can't remember the name of it, but I can find it and let Gitta know so she can get it out there. But it's a program designed for students who might be first generation college students or students of color or students with disabilities. I think those are the 3 entry criteria. And I know that that program is it's similar to the Neurodiversity Navigators program, but a little bit different. Like they would have a summer cohort where they learn how to be a student. And then one of their, it's like a 2-credit class that they take during the school year for their first year. That is kind of like this check-in self-advocacy class. And then they also get a, like there's a tutoring center and they get assigned, it's not the same as an IEP case manager, but they get assigned a mentor that helps them kind of make their way through that first year. But it does have that summer component. I can't, when I find out the information, I can let you know.
So there are also some colleges that recognize that students with learning disabilities might fall behind and not be able to take as many credits. And so they have them go through the summer. So there's this, I believe it's a SALT program at Arizona State. Yeah. And so, and then there have been other colleges that have had, like Gonzaga had one where you kind of, you just started early and got like a taste of college before you start. But they're also, I mean, I'm here in Kansas at a training, and the woman from University of Arkansas was telling me about the adaptive program that they have at the University of Arkansas. And so I think it's a matter of going through some of those websites that Jen showed, because every time they start to tell you of the different colleges, they're also going to tell you about programs to college prep courses. I mean, there's prep courses for academics, but it's the prep courses for like interviewing and doing those self-advocacy type things. That's maybe more what people might be looking for, but it just depends on what your question is. I think you got to start digging. And our college and career advisor at every high school is a wealth of information. So Sammamish has one. I can't remember her name. But every high school has one. So if you call the school or call the counselor, can you tell me the name of the college and career advisor at my high school? They'll connect you with them, and they will meet with you. They help you fill out the financial aid forms with your child. They're just your great resources. So I would check in with them as well.
And I just dropped a link in the chat. OLS every summer has it's usually called Skills. What is it? Skills for Life or Skills for Work Camp. So right now they don't have much posted other than they're going to have a summer program, but they don't have information yet on it. But it's usually open to 15 students, and you don't have to necessarily be going to OLS next year to participate. So that's another resource. And often they will pair with DVR. So that way, if your student applies for DVR, sometimes DVR will help pay, but if OLS can answer your questions about that. And I know some students who have done those camps, and that's been really helpful.
And also to remember that that a lot of them are already filling up. So if your child doesn't go this summer, make sure you guys get this information so you can send them next summer, because this is like a 4-year plan. When we're talking about after high school, the plan after high school, that's why we start in 9th grade, because we can't do it in 12th grade. We got to okay, what are you doing this summer? And what are you doing the summer after that? Because those wait lists are, they're hard to get into, and sometimes you need a teacher recommendation. So anyway, it's lots of steps. But we are happy. Any one of us are happy to answer questions. So I think our emails are on there. Please reach out. I think you kind of got a sense of what each one of us, our expertise is, and reach out to us, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And Gitta, I know you posted in the website where this link will be posted. later. And also, so the recording will be posted on our Bellevue School District Special Needs Special Services website, as well as a PDF to this presentation. So we will work on that tomorrow. Okay, everybody have a great night. Sally Sue, we will see you soon. Have a safe flight back from Kansas. When do you come